Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another study stream. 60 minutes at 6. If you are new to the stream, this is the stream for studying tournament poker spots. So, I'm just going to make sure we're definitely live. Looks like we are. So, yeah, welcome guys. What we're going to do today is go through, I've got 4 hands that I've run, and yeah, I guess we can go straight in. So if you guys have any questions, then just let me know, and if not, sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Okay, first spot then, we see a raise from the hijack, and we defend here with 8-5 off. I actually think this defend is pretty close. 8-7 and 8-6 off seem like good defends. I think 8-5 off versus a min raise is probably a defend sometimes, but maybe against a 2.2, this should just be a fold. So yeah, I think that's the first thing they want to talk about. Jack Rag on Twitch says, "Hi Gareth, hi all. How's it going? Welcome back to the stream." So yeah, so I think that's the first thing to talk about. We could actually just go ahead and fold here. Okay, so A7-6 monotone board. We check, expect a small bet very frequently, I guess. So hijack bets third pot. So I guess the first decision point here on the flop is it just a call, or can we raise sometimes? And yeah, I think what'll be interesting to see is if 8-5 off without a club does anything different to or from 8-5 off with a club. You know, does the 8 of clubs, for example, raise more aggressively than the 5 of clubs or something like that? So I felt like this was probably just going to be very high frequency call on the flop. I think people get scared a little bit in this spot. Certainly some students I've worked with here would flop a draw, but just be a little bit cautious, right? Well, you know, we're drawing to the, we've only got like, you know, 5 high flush. Obviously it depends, you know, what the turn is. But, you know, so we have the, you know, we would have a flush with a 5 of clubs, and then they can have like a better flush. And then you're drawing to a straight as well. So any 4, any 9. But, you know, you could already be behind. And I think it's a mistake to think like that. I think, you know, our opponent should be betting quite frequently, and we have a hand that we want to be able to continue. Question on Twitch, ShadowBV09. Hey man, is 8-5 off a defend from the big blind? Yeah, so we just talked about this, and just said that versus a min raise, I think it's very close, and versus a 2.22, I think it probably is just a fold. So yeah, that's a really, really good question. 8-6, 8-7 definitely be a call, and you know, if the raise came from further round, then it makes it more of a call as well. But yeah, great question. So yeah, so I think we just go for a call here, which is what I did. Turn is the 4 of spades. So I think this is quite an interesting one. And obviously we improved to a straight. Now, I'm not 100% familiar with monotone boards, whether when we improve on the card that completes an obvious straight, whether we do some leading, or whether that's, you know, it's not a thing on a monotone board. So that's another thing that we want to look at, to see if there is any leading on this on the turn. Now, when I say I'm not familiar with monotone boards, I know that on like a 7 or a 6, I think we're going to see a decent amount more leading than we would on a straight completing turn. But there are some boards where we get to lead when the obvious straight comes in. So I think, yeah, I think that's something to look for. Goes check, and then the river is the 8 of clubs. So yeah, I went for a check, and our opponent bets about 80% pot, and yeah, I guess, like, you know, he could definitely bluff. You know, we could just have some random 1 pair hands, 7x, 6x hands here, and so I don't think we get to fold this hand. I don't think we'd want to, and I think you know, we've talked about this on previous streams, whether it be the study streams or the live play and explains on a Sunday, where, you know, you could say, okay, but our opponents, they just don't bluff enough. We've got a bluff catcher, they don't bluff enough, maybe we should just fold. But I think that's a poor way to look at it. And so yeah, I think we just call here, and we're supposed to lose sometimes, and sometimes he's going to be bluffing, and we'll win. So I'll leave you in suspense here, because I do call, and you've got to wait until the end of the analysis to see see what he had. Okay, let's go into Pio. Shadow on Twitch says, I feel like I never lead the turn. Definitely something I need to work on. Yeah, so this hand should I should be able to help you out here. We'll look at the monotone board, and we'll look at basically different turn cards and see if it is the 7 and the 6x that get led more frequently, and whether like a straight completing card gets led at all on the turn as well. So hopefully I'll be able to look at that. Okay, so he goes ahead, and yeah, you can see just a lot of betting, a little bit of big betting, some checking, but mainly going for this small size. I wouldn't be surprised to see population just range betting this for this third pot size. So let's have a look at 8-5 off. Okay, so it's just a pure call. Looks like there's actually a little bit more raising going on without a club. You can see our hand 8-5 off with the 5 of clubs gets just pure call, and then 8-5 off without a club, raising a little bit of the time, 9%, something like that, and then 8-5 off with the 8 of clubs, raising about 6%. So I think just going for a check call here is going to be absolutely fine. 4 of spades then on the turn, and there's a tiny amount of leading here. You can see it's just like a sea of green, really. So what we want to do is look at this comparison window and just have a look. So obviously clubs improve our equity quite a lot, and then I said 6 and a 7 as well, and you can see our equity is quite high there, but quite high on a 5 as well. So let's have a look at strategy. Okay, yeah, so we do some leading for a small size on a club sometimes, and then for a bigger size on a 6 or a 7, and then on a 5 there's a little bit, on an 8 there's a little bit, and tiny amount on the 4, which we've already seen. So yeah, definitely the 6x, 6 and 7 where there's going to be more leading. But I mean, overall you can see like it's still like a lot of green. And if we go back to equity, you can see this sort of, let's go from like 9 upwards. You can see the equity. I mean, actually 10 is probably a better example. 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. Really not particularly good cards for us out of position. And you can see that we almost exclusively go for a check there. So something, yeah, just to keep an eye on. Okay, so we check and our opponent checks back. And then I think it was the 8 of clubs on the river. It was. So let's have a look. Okay, so we should be blocking here with all the 8-5 offs. Doesn't have to be the one with the 5 of clubs in it. So we can block bet a straight here. We don't just have to have the flush in order to block. But I think this is very, very interesting. There's some blocking going on with some 6x here. If I just do this, it's easier to see, I think. So a lot of blocking with the 6x. You've got some 5x here, which is straights. Some of this offsuit stuff is going to be flushes. Yeah, as you can see down here, just blocking with a lot of flushes in this spot. So yeah, I think that's pretty good to see. Blocking some 6-4 here, some more straights and things down here, and flushes going on down here. Okay, so yes, looks like we're blocking a 6 and a straight and a flush. I imagine, yeah, okay. So when we block with a 6, if we look at what our opponent's supposed to continue with, you can see that they're just folding a lot of 7x hands here, and yeah, it looks like it's actually a bluff, right? We're not, it's not a value bet, but we're trying to get our opponent to fold a slightly better hand in this situation. And also, I guess when we block, we also prevent them from, we check and they can put in a big bet. So that's something to look at as well. So yeah, it looks like we should have gone for the bet here, but we didn't. We went for a check. And then I guess the reason why we do a decent amount of blocking here is because our opponent is just checking back this river just a huge amount of the time, 63%. So there are some hands that we get value from here when we do block. So I think it's important to have looked at that. They should be using like a big size or a jam. I guess there's some half pot in there as well. So yeah, they actually use the 80%. And you can see that, shout out to Francola. You can see that we should be folding, majority of our ace-x hands. We call with flushes, I guess it's probably easier to go down like this. And bearing in mind we should have led the 8-5, that we're not, we can see what we should have done with it as played. So straight flush, obviously we're going to go for a check jam versus the bet. Here we're going to be raising all in with king or a queen of clubs, but then calling with anything worse than that. So I think that's pretty good to see. They're like where the threshold is. So you raise your queen X of clubs here, king X obviously because you have the nut flush, and then jack X, 10X, etc., etc. You're just going to go for the call. Straight's just going to go for a call, although there is actually some folding here with 6-5 off, which is interesting. 8-5 off though is all pure call, although we should have led it, remember. Sets, we're actually going to fold 6s and call 4s, probably to do with something to do with what our opponent bluffs with on the river, so we'll have a quick look at that in a minute. 2-pair, similar thing going on, so lots of folding with anything with a 6 in it. So I think that our opponent's probably going to be turning some kind of 6x into a bluff, and that's why it wants us to go ahead and fold that. But a lot of the other 2-pair going for call. Then top pairs, ace 2, ace 3. So like the side card or the kicker just sort of getting out of the way of where bluffs could come from for our opponent, right? So yeah, I think it all makes sense. Let's just go back to having a look at their range. So you can see king 6 and queen 6 going for a bluff here. So I don't know, 6-5 to the straight. But yeah, so there is some bluffing going on here with these hands. And then you can see some bluffing going on with like queen jack, queen 10, king jack. I'm looking in this region here to find some hands without clubs in. So all of this, and then yeah, same thing going on with the suited hands as well that are not flushes. So yeah, pretty cool to see. Interesting that it just goes for a check back with ace-x and 7x and 8x, and then does value bet 5x and flushes. Let's have a look. It doesn't value bet any sets or anything like that. No, you can see it just goes for a check back with pocket 8s. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, going back to what I was saying earlier on, that we'd sooner call with ace 2 and ace 3 because it's out of the way of where they finding those bluffs with like the king jack, king queen, king 10, and that's why we're folding like ace jack, ace 10 up here, because we're out of the way of like sorry, we're in the way here, king jack, king 10, queen jack, queen 10, stuff like that. So that's why we're folding at the top and calling at the bottom. Okay. So let's play a game of what did our opponent have. Let's go back to the hand, briefly summarize it. So flop looks absolutely fine for a check call. We're not leading this turn really, like 2.5%, so trace amount, but we would lead for a big size with a 7 or a 6, and we'd get to lead for a small size on a club. And those are the big takeaways. And then on the river, we should have blocked with all 8-5s, not just the one with the 5 of clubs in it. But we didn't. And then they went for a bet, and they're going to find those bluffs from sort of the king 10, king jack, jack 10 kind of region. And so we don't want to be blocking any of that. But we're not here. I mean, we have a flush, so we're going to call because we beat some bluffs. So let's play a game of what did he have? Go for it in the chat, guys. Okay, so he's got pocket kings with the king of clubs. That's a good guess. Pocket 9s, king queen with the queen of clubs. These are good guesses, guys. Jack Rag on Twitch, he said 9-9. Do you think 9-9 with a club or not, or without? Happy NLH says Jack deuce off. Okay, that's a pretty loose open from the hijack. Don't think it's going to be in their range, but interesting idea. So yeah, maybe just a king jack of spades. Pocket 9's no club. Who knows? Okay, well, we're going to find out right now. So this is a good example, guys, of sometimes they do bluff, and yeah, we get to pick it off. Okay, so okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. So we open off 27-ish big blinds with the ace-10 off. Big blind calls. They check this Jack 5-3 rainbow board to go for a small bet, and they call. 7 of hearts, not a great card, I think. I don't think we get to double barrel here. I mean, we're certainly going to have much worse hands here, and we still actually have some showdown value here. So we can still be ahead of 4 deuce, ace deuce, ace 4. And then some, it's a rainbow board, so I'd expect some random floats with, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw versus such a small bet. So, yeah, I think it's just worth thinking about like what kind of hands they could get to this turn with, and seeing where your hand, like how your hand stacks up against them. Obviously 6-4 gets there, and we don't open 6-4, but they could definitely have 6-4 off and 6-4 suited. Shadow on Twitch says, wow, what a punt. Ice Waffles said, doesn't need to be a punt because we have a lot of one pair hands that doesn't have a flush because we defend more suited lower end cards. Absolutely, yeah. And you saw in the solver, right, where he should find his bluffs, and it was, he actually found one of the spots where he should be bluffing. Probably not all the time, but certainly, about half the time. Looked pretty good. Okay, so yeah, we go for a check back here. So I just want to see the turn and see what what our strategy looks like. And then on the river, he bets like 30%, 33%, something like that. And we have a decision with ace 10. So yeah, just throw it out to you guys. What do you want to do in this spot? Are you calling, folding, raising? What are you doing? Okay, so we've got min raise for value. We've got a call. We've got a feeling never bluffs with that sizing if he floats with back doors. So you think that he might go for a bigger size with whatever the backdoor flush draw and straight draw that he might have floated the flop with. Depends on the player versus the fish I fold versus a reg I might raise big. Okay. Because you're very ace heavy and he wants to get you off it. Okay, yeah. Cool. Okay, so yeah, I went for the call. I felt like there were going to be enough bluffs in there, but we, again, I'll keep you in suspense as to what you think he might have had, and we can go to the sim. Paul on YouTube, welcome, says either fold or jam. Okay. So let's see, Jack 5-3. Okay, that's this one. So on the flop, very high frequency c-bet, as you can see, a little bit of checking. Looks like a decent number of 9x hands goes for a check back in this spot. But yeah, looks like the bet was fine. Let's have a look at what his continuing range looks like on a call. So I'm just going to go down to the nothing type hands because this is sort of the driver as to why why I thought it was going to be a good call here. So let's have a quick look. So like you can see like queen 10 with a backdoor flush draw, queen 9, queen 7 even. I'm not sure population are defending that wide versus a small bet, but it's definitely in there. Queen 10, queen 9 off are in there. 10-8 suited, 9-8 suited. So a lot of these sort of anything like backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw basically is what we're how I would class it and think about it. And you can see all of these hands that continue at some frequency have those sort of ideas, right, of having that backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. Eiffel says, what are your different bet sizings? On the flop, I would here I would have had like quarter pot and geometric sizing. So you can, let's go back 1 second. So yeah, the geometric sizing here was 3.16, and then this is quarter pot. But you can see like there's very little big betting going on. Like the first overpair, very common, like ace jack off is like very similar in value. So they're going for big bet sometimes. But yeah, mainly just going for that small bet. Okay, so yeah, as I said, like if we think that they're maybe flowing with sort of this region and some of this as well that doesn't improve on the river, then what we want to know is, are they actually, like, does the solver choose those to bluff with? And if they do, then ace 10 off might actually be a reasonable call. Anyway, they call, and turn was the 7 of hearts. Interesting, there's no leading here, even though they have the 6-4 advantage. Let's have a look at what if there's really some standout cards. So the 3 and the 5 once again. So when the turn card pairs, there's more leading. I guess the thing here with the straight completing is there are no obvious draws, right? Apart from, like, we had ace 2, ace 4, and 4 deuce, but there's no flush draw. So maybe if, like, the board was like jack 5 3 two-tone or flush draw board, then maybe we get to see some more leading here. Or maybe if the 7 was a club, a diamond, or a spade as well, maybe we get to see some more leading. But yeah, nothing going on here. He checked, and you can see ace 10 off is just a check back here. So if he is flowing the flop with a lot of those hands, ace 10 off is just doing really, really well against those hands. We do bet 7x for a pretty big sizing. Again, this is going to be, I think this will be the geometric sizing. So to be able to, it's about 3/4 pot, so we'll be able to jam for 3/4 pot on the river. Maybe not with the 7, but it depends how the run out is. So yeah, you can see, like, quite a lot of the 7x going for a bet. So either good kicker or 2 pair down here, or 7x with a gut shot as well. So just having that little bit more equity, you can see, like, 7-6 suited has 74% and 9-7 has 72. Anything else? So there's a lot of jack X. Interesting, we check back pocket jacks. We continue betting with kings and queens. We're mixing with aces. We do some checking back with pocket 5s, and quite a lot of checking back with pocket 7s, to be honest here. So I guess I'm just trying to work out why this is happening. So if we go back to thinking about what the kind of hands were that floated the flop. It was like queen 7, 9-7, 7-8, 7-6, like those kind of hands. So it did have quite a lot of 7x, and those are the kind of hands that we can get to call again on the turn, right? So, but if we're blocking a lot of those 7x hands by having 2 7s ourselves, then we want to start checking it sometimes. Quick question on Twitch. Interesting to use big sizing, even though so dry board. We do it to target pair of 3 and 5, so we can use same sizing for a bluff. You mean on this turn card? Like using this big size 3/4 pot? I think it's, I mean, I gave it the option, so you can bet small, which is, this must be about 40% pot, geometric sizing, and then jam. And you can see that it really chooses this geometric sizing, so it wants to get a lot of value from its value hands, as you can see here. So those overpairs and jack X and the sort of strong but maybe more vulnerable hands, whereas like the set of 7s checks back sometimes, jacks all the time. Again, this is more obvious to me as a check back, because we just block a lot of our opponent's continues on versus the turn bet, so we just check back. 5's betting a lot more frequently, 3's betting a lot more frequently. Let's have a look at what they are supposed to start folding then versus this big bet. So you can see that, for example, if we had ace 10, we're just getting a lot of hands to fold that we already are miles ahead of. So it doesn't really make too much sense from a logical point of view. It's always, when you're using a solver and trying to learn strategies, just try and use the solver to come up with a sort of logical reason or base for why you want to do something. So it doesn't really make too much sense to bet ace 10. But if we just go back and look at a hand that we might bluff with, like queen 9 off, for example, then suddenly we're getting all the ace highs and king high hands and some better queen high hands to fold, right? And then we're also getting some 5x and some 3x hands to fold as well. So there's, when you can get better hands to fold, that just makes more logical sense to go for a bluff, right? Like if all you're getting to fold is hands that you beat already, then it just doesn't make too much sense, all right? And then you're just going to get called by hands that have you beat, and then you're putting more money in where you didn't need to. Okay, so that's what happened there. So we did check back. We found the good check back. So let's be checking back some 5x. We have a few 5x hands here, and but the 7x still goes for value. I don't think there's any mergy kind of stuff going on here. It's not like we ever get a jack to fold. So as you can see, like all the jack X hands call. So it's value betting the 7. and we still get called by some, you know, some 5x and some 3x and stuff like that. And yeah, I guess like 3x or 5x with a draw, so like 4-3 or 6, not 6-4, 6-5, 5-4, those kind of hands. All right. So we went for a check, and the river was the 5 of clubs. And our opponent went for a block. It was 250, so just a little bit over this 248. So the kind of hands they're going to do this with, some 3x, some 5x, not a lot of 7x. 7-5 does go in there, but that's a full house. And then there's some bluffs as well. So I think one of the comments was, I don't think he's ever bluffing for this size. But the solver is going to throw in, you know, some bluffs in this spot with these king 10, queen 10 type hands. And yeah, this is where, yeah, there's a lot of those floats are gonna come from, that we were, you know, thinking, okay, well, if they're gonna bluff with these hands, then maybe ace 10 is going to be absolutely fine to call on the end. So there's the small bet. Let's have a look at ace 10. So it looks like we're supposed to call most of the time, like 80% ish plus. The EV won't be particularly high, as you can see. It's all red. But I think that, you know, if we're starting to fold these ace high hands, like we have quite a few of them, they're all going to be pretty similar in value, then yeah, we're probably just overfolding, right? And we're suddenly going to be like pretty easy to play against, because we're just going to wait until we have, you know, some kind of better showdown value, or, you know, better bluff catcher that's like a, you know, pair on the board that blocks some of the hands they could be value betting or something. So yeah, I think it's a good call on the end. So question, guys, what does the big blind have here? Go for it in the chat. Okay, so we've got 7-6 suited, Jack 9. I think these are all good suggestions. I'm just going to go back to the hand really quickly, because I want to see. So 7-6 suited should be using the bigger size, which is like 3/4 pot on the end, and is doing that for value. 7-6. Jack X, I think, is going to use the similar size, yet also uses that sizing. So as we saw, like the block is really going to come from 5x and 3x. But I think, you know, you're right. It could definitely be some 7x hands, you know, 7-6, 7-8, 7-4. Yeah, could be some of those hands. 7-3 even as well. There's some blocking going on there. So yeah, there is some 7x going for this small bet. Could you show the percentage of check raise from the villain when we bet small on the turn? Yeah, we'll come back to that. We didn't bet small on the turn, but yeah. Jordwan says Jack X. So yeah, it looks like Jack X and 7x gets to use the bigger size, which is this one, as you can see here. Jack X and 7x, some 5x as well, I guess. And then the smaller bet is primarily for 3x hands, and then some 5x as well. So yeah, pretty interesting there. So let's go back and have a look what happens when we bet small, how our opponent continues. And yeah, so you're going to continue with 5x and 3x and 7x, do some check raising with Jack X. And I guess we're, you know, getting a little bit of value if we were going to use that small size, but I don't think we should against the ace 6 and ace 4, just because we don't get like these hands to fold, the 5x and the 3x. So all we're really doing is like getting all of these weaker hands to fold still, which we're miles ahead of, and then they're continuing with hands with, you know, okay-ish equity, and then good equity, like having a pair, right? Okay, let's see what he had. He had 8-7 of diamonds. So yeah, I think yeah, you might have thought, okay, the flop float, when I was talking about, you know, the ideas behind having that backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, if we go back to the flop analysis, like, you know, some players are going to have that, right? They're going to find those flop floats on this dry board, backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and then he found the value bet as well. I think he should go bigger, even like the solver would, and just go for the 6 big blind bet instead for value with the 7. All right. Chuckcon 55 even. Thanks for the follow. Okay, so we see an under the gun raise here. We go for a 3-bet with queens, and EP calls. Flop comes ace 9 6. Ice waffles, thanks for the follow. And we go for a bet. I'm going to come back to all of these decision points because I think there's probably a lot to talk about in all of them. We check turn. I think that's good. And on the river, he goes for a pretty big bet. And yeah, I just decided to fold. So let's talk about the whole hand, because I think even pre-flop is pretty interesting. I looked at the pre-flop solutions for this hand, like when I was setting the sim up, and queens actually does quite a lot of calling here, a lot more calling than I expected. So I think that's the first thing to think about, is that, you know, just because we have a premium hand, that we're not always just going for a raise here. We are facing up, 60-ish big blinds deep against early position. And, if we're 3-betting like queens and jacks plus, then, we got to sort of, we suddenly have to have like 10s, 9s, 8s, and all the way down to 2s and stuff like that to call. So, yeah, interesting to see that there is actually some flatting going on here. So I think before I looked at that, I would have just gone for a 3-bet here all the time. So I think that's the first thing to think about. And then on the flop, I don't think it's a spot where we get to range bet. So that's the second thing. So we've gone for the aggressive action pre-flop and the aggressive action on the flop. And I think actually both, we could play more passively. So I think, yeah, we could have called pre, and then on the flop, we don't necessarily need to go for a bet. We're just, very far ahead of hands like jacks and 10s. We're ahead of like king 9 suited, 10 9 suited, jack 9 suited if he's floated those. We get some value if he has hands like 8 7 suited or 10 8 suited, stuff like that. But we're then miles behind any kind of ace X. So he's going to have suited aces, going to have like ace queen can flat here. I'm not sure if ace king, I can't remember now. We'll look at the sim in a minute. But if either ace king off, more likely I think to flat versus a 3-bet here. So yeah, I think we don't necessarily get to do this betting to bet here all the time. So I think that's something to look at as well. Turn I think is absolutely fine. Like we're just miles ahead of a lot of hands and miles behind others, and I think then we can make a decision on the river depending on what he chooses to do. Jalko Mezgo, thanks for the follow. Then he bombs it on the river, and I think when I went through this on the stream, so all of these hands are taken from Sunday's stream. So if you haven't seen any of the live play and explain streams yet, what I do is try and play as well as possible, try and explain my decisions. But if there are ever any spots that I'm like, do you know what, I'm not 100% sure here, I'm going to mark them for review, and then I'm going to go through them in these study streams on a Tuesday and Thursday. So yeah, that's basically the premise, the idea, right? So this is from that stream, and I was like, on the stream, I was like, I'm struggling to find enough bluffs here, and I think that he should be checking this river quite a lot. But then as I was like, I set the sim up and stuff, and I started to think about it, with a lot more time than like the 10-15 seconds you get. I mean, he is going to have, as I already said, like 10-7, not 10-7, 10-8, 7-8. And he could even turn like a 9x hand into a bluff now. So I think there are some bluffs in here, but there are also going to be like quite a lot of ace X. So I actually sort of, going to go back on what I said on the stream, and that, I think he can find some bets here. And I think it's interesting, like what we're supposed to do on the turn with our best hands. Like, do we check back pocket aces? Do we check back even a hand like ace king, ace queen? Because, if we're not checking back those hands, then on the river we have like maybe ace jack, maybe jack 9 suited, maybe jacks, right, that can call. So I think it'd be interesting to know what happens, because otherwise we're just like basically in no man's land. He bets the river, and we have to just do a lot of folding, or just go for a call here. So we basically, just don't want to be massively capped by checking the turn and saying, look, we don't have a hand better than an ace. So if you have an ace on the river, you can just blast away. Okay, so Let's just have a quick look at the imposition range. So you can see this is what I was talking about before. These ranges or solutions taken from pre-flop solutions run by Monka Solver. And you can see that Queen's only 3 bets here 53% of the time. Wants to go for a call in 47, so you could mix that. Yeah, 50-50 I think would be absolutely fine. Looks like aces, kings, and ace-king suited are the only hands that go for the 3-bet here. Even a hand like ace-king off is flatting 62% of the time and going for a 3-bet, 38. So yeah, I don't think that we necessarily have to like look at our ranges and 60 big blinds and just go, okay, I'm always going to 3-bet queens plus, I'm always going to 3-bet ace king. You can go for a call sometimes. We could just discuss really quickly about why the solver might be doing that. I think it obviously thinks that the highest EV line is to mix, so that obviously isn't just one single line, but the EV of both lines are quite similar. And I guess that it wants to have some really strong hands in its flatting range for post-flop, but also to protect against squeezes from the blinds, right? So we face a squeeze from the blinds, and then suddenly we get to a back raise jam with ace king or queens or something like that. So yeah, I think that's probably why it's choosing to do that. Okay, so let's go back to the strategy, and as you can see, I'm not sure if you can see this, guys. It's really, really small. 62.7% check, 36% bet small, and a tiny amount, 1.3% going for the geometric sizing, which is about half pot in this spot. So yeah, I don't think we need to have gone for the bet straight away. We could have held back. Let's just run through. 1 second. Yeah, maybe we can find some ideas in here as to what we should be doing. So like 9s and 6s, I don't think we've been 3-betting 6s very often, and that's why there's only a little bit in there. Same with 9s. I think we flat quite a lot with 9s in this spot, but if we have those, they're going to make better bets than pocket aces, for example, as you can see. So if we're checking back queens roughly 60-65% of the time, then we are checking back some a very, very strong hand as well. 2 pairs, we're just going to go for a bet. Ace 9 suited, ace 6 suited. Top pair looks like it's betting somewhat linearly, so like betting ace king way more frequently than like ace 4. So again, if we are supposed to do some checking back, which as you can see we're supposed to check roughly 39% of the time, then we're always searching for the hands that we're supposed to do that with. And if we're going to check back like kings and queens here, we want to check back some ace x hands as well, because otherwise our opponent can just blast away on the turn of the river, and we're going to be left there with kings or queens and just be like playing a guessing game trying to work out whether or not he's capable of bluffing or bluffing the right frequency or whatever. So we want to have some much easier calls on turns and rivers by going for a check sometimes with these hands. Okay, under pairs looks like just quite a lot of checking. So I think that's something that maybe I'm just sort of overdoing it on this particular board, just going for a c-bet way too frequently. Second pairs, we get to bet a lot more frequently. They just require like more protection, I would say, and so that's why they're going for a bet. Third pair, a little bit more as well. I guess that these hands have a bit more equity. So you would look at a hand like king 6 versus 8s. Like you would say, okay, I would sooner have 8s in this spot. But if our opponent has an ace or even a 9, then we would sooner have 5 outs rather than 2, right? So there might be something in there. Even though you can see the equity is slightly higher with 8s versus king 6. I wonder if the equity realization is a bit. Yeah, so you can see pocket 8s equity realization is only 89-90%, whereas king 6 is a lot higher. Jorgan67, thanks for the follow. Kakainis, thanks for the follow as well. I think I missed that one. We don't have any low pairs. We've got some king highs. Do some checking and betting with these hands. King queen of spades. So interesting, king queen with no backdoor flush draw goes for the bet. Same with king jack and king 10. These hands are going to start having backdoor straight draws as well. I guess the 10x does as well. But yeah, jack x and queen x doesn't. And then king queen off, king jack off going for a bet quite frequently. And then the nothing type hands, some of these are going to be some draws. But yeah, it looks like the same thing's going on with the suited hands. If we do have some kind of backdoor straight draw as well, we're going to bet a lot more frequently. But queen jack, for example, I guess that, does that have a backdoor straight draw? But you can see that the spades are going to bet way more frequently than hearts, diamonds, or clubs, which are the suits on the board. and queen jack off bets quite frequently. So yeah, we're going to have some 8-7 we're going to bet, and 10-8 suited as well. Okay, so we went for the bet there. Continuing range, like a lot of ace-x, some 6x, some 9x. So we did really well against this 9x portion, doing really well against the draws as well. Some 6x down here too, and some 8-7 and some 10-8, stuff like that. Interesting that pocket jacks and pocket 10s actually starts to fold here. So that's, yeah, I think that's really interesting. Because if we're suddenly not getting value from the kind of hands that we were trying to target, then it doesn't really make too much logical sense to go for a bet. So yeah, I think, you know, that could be another reason why queens doesn't go for a bet all the time, because we're not getting that value. Sure, we're getting value from the 9x hands, but not from jacks and 10s, for example. Okay, was the 4 of spades on the turn? Check. And then we check back. Okay, so the question I had on the turn then was, you know, what are we doing with the strongest hands? Like pocket aces, you can see, is going for a check back here. And but all the other hands, like ace king, looks like it's going to bet and use a geometric sizing here. Ace 9 actually going for a smaller size, which is cool to see. King 9 going for a big bet. Pocket 9's big bet. We got some other hands in here that using the big bet as well, which is this one here. A bit of big betting with ace 10, ace jack, ace queen, but also like a decent amount of checking with these hands too. So yeah, I think we're not just going to like check back kings and queens here and like some weak 9x hands. Like we do have a set of aces. We do have some ace-x hands here. So yeah, I think that's cool. And the river was the jack of spades. Okay, and yeah, he could do some jamming with 9s and maybe 9-8 suited as a bluff. But then the main thing is going to come from this big sizing, which is what he chose, and he can do that with his strongest ace-x hands and ace-4, ace-6 too, and yeah, and then actually, you know, start to bluff with like queen 9, jack 9 as well. Seeing that there are some bluffs here with like queen 9 and jack 9 makes me think that maybe when we have oh no, jack 9's 2 pair. Seeing that we have queen 9 here, then we yeah, I think that maybe that's going to force queens into wanting to fold a little bit more frequently. Kiko Weber on Twitch says, but so basically with king 9 we have to bet more to protect our hand. Yep, I think that's correct on the turn. Okay, so and also like we're going to have some other bluffs in there. I mean, have some very strong hands as well. And with king 9, obviously we block their most obvious set, which is pocket 9s. Okay, what kind of bluffs does this player have? So I always like to go to the nothing. So there's definitely some 8-7 suited, not all the time, like they don't open in the first place, but they probably do flat versus the 3-bet, but it's low frequency and maybe some of it gets raised on the flop. So there's not, yeah, just be careful when you're like in Pio and looking at like, if you click normalized squares and you're like, oh, he's got like loads of 8-7 suited, loads of 10-8 suited, when in actuality he doesn't. So just be careful with that. So yeah, king highs. There's some bluffing going on here with yeah, not for the big size though. You can see it wants to block with like king queen, king 10. I don't know if that's because you know it blocks us from having ace queen, ace 10, that kind of thing. Yeah, not 100% sure. Some low pairs going for the bigger bet though. You can see here. Let's go back. So yeah, I think 8s is probably bluffing now. I think 7s is definitely bluffing. 7-6, 6-5 going for a bluff. Pocket 5s. King 6 going for a small bet. So yeah, I think that these hands are bluffing now for this size. So now it sort of begs the question of like, you know, is my opponent going to have like turn a made hand into a bluff? And I mean, if he knows that he could get a hand as strong as kings or queens to fold, then potentially. So yeah, I think that's good to see. So versus the big bet, then we do start folding kings, we do start folding queens. In terms of EV, it's pretty rubbish. But I think we probably would have to call against someone who we really felt like was capable of turning these hands into instant bluffs, at least some of the time. You know, you certainly shouldn't fold all the time, and you shouldn't call all the time. You know, something in the middle. Kings looks like it's folding way more frequently. I wonder if it's because, yeah, there's not any betting going on with the king king queen here, king jack, stuff like that. Yeah, so very often like it's we fold kings because we block a lot of their bets, right, their bluffs. But I can't see any king x being used. You can see there's literally none. So yeah, pretty interesting that we get to fold kings way more frequently than pocket queens. When if we go back to it, there is some big betting going on with some queen nine. So yeah, not 100% sure. Again, the solver's sometimes going to throw out some stuff that we don't understand, and sadly it doesn't come with a a little help button. I wish it did, like a little help button here said, why do I fold queens? Sorry, why do I fold kings more than I fold queens in this spot? So yeah, so we've got all of the ace x to call. We can jam ace jack, we can jam aces, we can jam jack nine of clubs. We can jam king jack of hearts as a bluff, so we've got, we can defend here. So yeah, it looks like queens is it's folding a reasonable amount at the time. And yeah, that's it for that hand. So I thought it was pretty interesting. So we'll go back. So yeah, so pre-flop we can flat, flop we don't have to bet, and the most obvious value hands that we're targeting, like tens and jacks, actually starts to fold even versus that small bet, so just be aware of that. Turn, I think, is just always a check, and we do check back some strong ace-x hand, well, pocket aces and some other ace-x hands, not hands as strong as like ace-king, ace-queen, but yeah, other weaker suited aces that we could have here, so that when this happens, we've got an ace to defend on the river. All right. Okay, so this is going to be the last hand that we look at today. Before we get into it, if you haven't done so already, hit that follow button if you're watching on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, and so you'll be notified whenever we go live or have a new video out. At the moment, the videos are going out on a Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. GMT and a Friday evening at 8 p.m. GMT. So on a Wednesday, one of the study videos goes up. So we're doing 2 study sessions a week at the moment. One of them will go up on a Wednesday, probably from the previous week, but we've got a selection of those ready to go in the archives. And then on the Friday is the highlight stream, so highlights from the stream. So the stream happens on a Sunday, and then the highlights go up on the Friday. So yeah, I think we made 4 final tables on last Sunday's stream, and yeah, it was an interesting one, but I'm not going to spoil it as to what happened in that session. So just got to go ahead and watch the highlights on Friday. And yeah, okay, so that's it from the sort of the plugs of the YouTube videos. Let's go into this hand. So we raise with king 10 off and folds around to the big blind. Flop comes king 7-7, big blind checks. And I think given that it's a paired board where the bottom cards are paired, we're going to see a decent amount of checking here. I would say that, like, from looking at some hands I've played recently on these kind of boards, I'm maybe just, again, overdoing the checking, like sort of recognizing that we're supposed to do a decent amount of checking here and then just completely overdoing it, right? So my first question to the solver here is, are we supposed to bet this hand? If not, like, what kind of frequencies are we betting, like king queen, king jack, those kind of hands, ace king, pocket aces? Are we always just going for a bet with those hands, or is it just like really high frequency check back here? So anyway, I went for a check. Turn is the 5 of diamonds. I went for a value bet now. I get called by lots of hands, king x, 5x, diamonds, ace high, straight draws, those kind of hands. The river is the jack of spades. He checks again, and I was really torn in game between being able to value bet here and check back. Obviously, we chop now with all of the king x, so I think it should be obvious that king queen and ace king like going to be much better bets on this river. But then I think we've got to go wider and think, like, what kind of hands can we get called by? Like, he could easily have like jack x of diamonds. He can float the turn with like ace jack, I guess. And he's going to have some 5x that we could still get value from. And then, we are going to want to bluff this river. So, yeah, I think all in all, we probably do get to value bet a king. I actually went for the check back, and yeah, I'm not sure I like it, but we'll see what the solver says. Okay. Okay, so king 7-7 board, then you can see we're doing 58, well, 59% checking back, and frequency looks like 60-40-ish across the board, maybe a little bit more checking with a club, potentially. Yeah, I think so. So that's interesting, but yeah, we're not supposed to check all the time, but we are supposed to check quite a lot of the time. But I think that I'm probably just overdoing this and just checking back every single time with this hand. You can see king queen going for a bet more frequently, ace king more frequently, aces just going for a mix though too. Kings is going for a check back. I mean, I love this really. I think it's great when you see such a high frequency check. Like again, we're trying to find the like where the checks come from, and we have a lot in this spot. But if we go to the strongest hands we can possibly have, pocket kings checks, pocket sevens checks, king 7 checks. We have ace 7 and 9 7 and 8 7 and 7 6. Those hands are not going to check. We still want to go ahead and bet those hands. But yeah, you can see like king X hands sort of betting linearly, like betting king queen way more than king 5, king queen off betting way more frequently than king 10 off. So yeah, we're right to go for the check here. Just don't want to make sure that I'm not doing it all the time. But that idea of like linear betting with top pair here, I think is pretty good. I like checking way more frequently with like king 5, king 6, king 8 than king queen. All right, 5 of diamonds on the turn, and yeah, you can see some betting going on here. Split block and geometric sizing, which is just a little bit over and over bet, but like overall, just a lot of checking in this spot. So let's have a look at our king X hands now. So like if we did check back with king queen, like now we just get to bet it a lot, and we do the same with aces and with ace king, and yeah, interesting. We like down to king 10 off again. We could just go for a check here. So again, like I think I'm probably maybe going for a like check back flop, and then I'm like, oh well, if he's going to check twice, I'm just going to blast away now with king 10. Like it's really strong value hand, right? Let's get loads of value from it. So yeah, maybe again overdoing it. Maybe we want to go for the check. He can have some 7x to check raise still. So we've got to be a little bit cautious of that. I would imagine that that's why the solver's not getting to bet king 10 all the time. Like if the solver was just leading all these 7x all the time for the overbet, then I reckon that king 10 would probably just be a strong value bet, because we just get called by all the king x and some draws and some 5x and stuff like that. But yeah, because the out of position player still has those 7x to go for a check raise, we get we can't just blast away now. So I think that's pretty interesting. Zuzette says, do you mind explaining what the grey area is in the pio cells? What does it signify? Are they hands that aren't in your range at that specific point in the hand? Yeah, exactly. So you can see that if we go back to the flop, all the hands in grey are the ones we don't open. We open all of these hands, so like 3, sometimes 4s plus, like all of these suited hands down here, all the suited aces, ace 9 off plus, mainly all of the Broadway hands, and then ace 8 off sometimes too. And you can see all these suited hands here. But yeah, if any hand's not in there, for example, like this one here, for whatever reason, then we, it means that it's not in the range at that juncture. So like either it was folded pre-flop, or it was jammed pre-flop, or 3-bet pre-flop. Something else happened where it means that that hand now is not in the range. And the same thing goes for these hands up here. And anytime there's like the text in the box, means that there's a little bit of that kind of range, of that hand in there. So that's why ace 7 suited, it looks like there's nothing in there, but it's a tiny little bit here. But yeah, I think that most of the time, as you can see, like it's probably going to get led on the turn, or a bet on the turn. Okay, so let's try and think about what his range looks like. We've got all this king X hands, but of course we know that we chop with most of that now. Apart from like king queen or king jack on that jack of spades river, but yeah, we can still, we're still getting value from those hands. 5x, you can see no 5x hand goes ahead and folds here, so I think that's pretty interesting. And yeah, some flush draws and stuff like that. So yeah, let's have him call, and then the river was the jack of spades. So interestingly, he does get to do some leading here, does get to lead some King X hands. If he did lead, then we actually start mixing our hand, which is very interesting. But he's going to check a lot of 5x here. He does still have some 7x hands in here. He's also going to have some ace highs. Ace jack was one of those hands that we looked at, that I mentioned, that can float the turn, and that we could then potentially get value from. I think it's unlikely we get value from much worse than a pair on this board, but let's just check and then see what we're supposed to do. So versus the check, we get to jam now with these hands that we talked about earlier on, that we get to check back on the flop, and then we bet turn, and then we get to jam river. So like our best King X aces, we get some bluffs in here, which is cool. King 7, 7s, 5s, all these really strong hands, ace 7 suited as well, and then some bluffs too. But yeah, it looks like we're going for this, we should be going for a half pot bet with our hand King 10, King 10, King 9, King 8. And yeah, what kind of hands do we get to call then? So we still get called by 5x, and interestingly, all these suited aces, like ace x of diamonds, we can get value from those as well. So I think that's good to see. And I think again, it like we were talking about earlier on, like it's folding the top, folding ace 10, ace 9, ace 8, because that's where we're going to find our bluffs from. So we're going to those cards is where we're going to find our bluffs from. Whereas ace 2, ace 3, ace 4, ace 6, like we probably bluff less with those kind of cards, like the bottom cards. So yeah, I think that's really cool to see. And we saw like queen 10 off, for example, was a bluff for us on the river, right? So yeah, that's why ace 10 is going to go ahead and fold, because it blocks that. Okay, so 5x, not all 5x calls. We've got ace 5 and jack 5 that will call. So again, some 5x that doesn't block some of those bluffs. So you can see like queen 5, 10 5, 9 5, 8 5 all starting to fold. So like again, 10x, 9x and 8x, 10x, 9x and 8x, like just that's what makes me like straight away go, okay, that's where the bluffs must be coming from, and that's why they're going to choose to fold those kind of hands. Okay. Whereas like 5x with a much lower card, it goes for the call a lot more frequently. Question then, why do you think he can lead some King X? Is a really good question. I think it's really, really interesting. I guess it's like because he doesn't want to have to face like a massive bet, potentially. So he can still get value from some hands. So for example, he can still get value from ace high and ace jack and other jack X hands, and yeah, even these under pairs as well, and some queens. So like it's going for value with like by leading the river, but it's a like pretty grim spot. It's given that we get to jam like king queen off now and king 10 off sometimes as well. He's then in like a horrible spot to block a king, as in block bet a king, and then have to call it off versus the jam. Yeah, it's very cool. Hattie, any check raise bluffs on the turn? 6-4 maybe. Great question. Let's go in and have a look. So yeah, 9-8 of diamonds is a bluff, check raise bluff from out of position. But you can see, 1 second, don't know why this happened. A bit of 9-6 and 8-4 of diamonds as well, but mainly these hands are just going for a check call. So you asked about 6-4, but yeah, it looks like 9-8 is the most common one there. A huge amount of check raises with flush draws, especially like King X of diamonds, looks like, especially the top ones. But you got a lot in here. I guess these hands just like prefer to go for a check raise to to be able to balance out like the 7x hands that they still have in there that they can check raise, and some strong King X hands as well, like we saw King Queen, stuff like that. So I think that's really really cool to see. Some of these are going to be led on the turn. That's why they're not there at full frequency. A out straight draws. So yeah, you said 6-4. So looks like you're absolutely spot on. 6-4 of spades, 6-4 of hearts. Less so 6-4 of clubs. A little bit of 8-6 in there, and some 6-4 off too. So yeah, spot on. Really, really good. And then 4 out straight draws, mainly just going for a fold. I mean, some bluff raises. Yeah, this reminds me of a hand I played against Matthias Eibinger during W Coupe. where it was a slightly different board, but I turned a set and then he check raised, and then the river was like, it completed the flush, and he bet really small. And I was like, debating whether to call or to jam the river. Went for the call, and he'd like check raised some kind of weird gut shot that improved to a straight on the river. Like he didn't even have a flush. So yeah, that's I think that's pretty interesting. Diego says on YouTube, if we see bet small on the flop, is he's supposed to check raise a lot, right? Yeah, he is. Before we get there, let's just quickly have a look at like what value hands he check raises. So it's mainly the top, like again, very linearly. So like king, queen, and king, jack raising a lot more frequently than anything else. And then he's got some trips as well. But cool to see, like, just going for a check call sometimes too. It's like jack 7, maybe 10-7 is the threshold for wanting to go for the raise. Let's go back to the flop. We go for the small bet. You can see that raising 30% of the time. And it doesn't just have to be 7x or king x hands here. Again, that, I was talking earlier on about rainbow boards, very, very common, like backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw type hands. So if you ever find a hand, like let's just hover over this randomly 8-4 suited, well, 8-4 suited is got a backdoor straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. So it just means that when it check raises, the turn can improve those cards equity, quite considerably. That's what it's really, banking on. And I think that there's a lot of check raising, which means you got to, defend quite a lot versus the check raise. But then I think quite a lot of these hands will give up on the turn. So it's not just like, if there's like a queen of spades on the turn and these hands don't improve to anything, then they're probably just going to give up, right? But yeah, I think that's, if you're looking to play more aggressively on these types of boards, especially rainbow paired boards, look for backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw type hands, and then go for it. Okay, so I think that's going to wrap things up there. Just a really quick plug from me. If you're interested in private coaching, group coaching, interactive webinars, or my course, then go over to MTTPOKERSCHOOL.com and all the information is on there. So yeah, all of the stuff that you could ever want is on there, and all the socials as well. So if you want information on the YouTube channel, Instagram account, Twitter, Facebook group, stuff like that, it's all on MTTPOKERSCHOOL.com. So check that out. And immediately after this, Ice Waffle says, do we defend a lot of ace-x versus the check raise on the flop? Let's have a look. If I can pull up the right board. Nope. We'll get there eventually. Okay, yeah. So you can see that we defend like pretty liberally. Obviously, we defend with our king x, but we're also defending like queen x with a backdoor flush draw, as you can see here. Jack x with a backdoor flush draw. Sometimes even jack x without a backdoor flush draw. Jack 10 of spades. So there's there's a lot of hands we're supposed to defend with. I would say that like you could probably get away with check raising even more aggressively on these boards, because I don't see people defending the flop with like jack 10 enough, or even like 10-9 or 9-8. So if we're going to be going for the check raises with backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, then our opponents need to be continuing with these hands as well, like those similar type hands. So, yeah, I think this is really, really cool to see. I think this is like also a really good example of like trying to connect all the dots, right? So in order to really connect the dots, you really need to understand how both ranges are playing their particular board, right? So you can go, okay, yeah, I know how I'm supposed to play. I know how I'm supposed to play. But if you don't know that like he's supposed to check raise pretty aggressively here, then you're just going to be like, oh, well, he's probably just got a 7. I'm just going to fold. But that's just not the case. Icewaffle says, wow, I think I overfold so much, but I guess micro players maybe don't check raise that much. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So really good to have a baseline of like, okay, supposed to check raise 30%-ish on this board. Are your opponents doing that? Look for the check raise stat on your HUD if you're playing on a site that allows HUDs. Look at your opponent and think, are they going to be finding like the 10-8 of diamonds check raises here? If not, then you can probably start overfolding. But yeah, it's lots to think about. Diego says, great content, buddy. Thank you very much. You are welcome. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up. This has been the study stream for Thursday. Hope you've enjoyed yourselves, guys. Hit the follow button on Twitch if you haven't done so already, and subscribe on YouTube. And I will see you again on Sunday, 10 a.m. GMT for the live Play and Explain stream. Until then, take care and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.